Sure, fighter jets and jumbo jets are cool, but watching them on repeat, things start to feel a little
boring.
Some planes are built for speed, some are built for luxury, and then there are planes that look like they were built on a dare. Well, buckle up, because today we're looking at 5 of the strangest, funniest, and most bizarre planes to ever take flight, and trust me, these are anything but boring. Number 5. Nicknamed the Flying Watermelon, the Flying Football, or the Flying Gas Cylinder.
What?
The Arava has to be one of the goofiest looking planes ever built. Back in the late 1960s, Israeli aircraft industries wanted to break free from just copying French and American designs. So they came up with their own original aircraft, the Arava. It was built for short takeoffs and landings, designed to haul heavy loads into tiny, rough airstrips. And it looked every bit the part: short, round, and stocky. Think of it like Israel's answer to Canada's Twin Otter or Ireland's short Skyvan. It had rugged fixed landing gear, a huge rear opening for easy loading, and reliable Pratt & Whitney PT6 turboprops. It could haul 20 passengers or about 5,000 pounds of cargo. Sounds great, right? Well, not exactly. Despite plans to sell 400 to 600 of them, nobody wanted the poor Arava. Even the Israeli Air Force passed. One prototype even crashed, which didn't help. Eventually, the plane found some success in Central and South America, where its wide body and rough field ability actually came in handy. Around 90 were sold in total. Oh, and it could even be fitted with rockets and machine guns, though thankfully, no one used it that way. Number 4. If you thought planes couldn't get weirder, meet the Jabiru J432, also known as the Twin-Nosed Jabiru. Now, Jabiru is an Australian company that usually makes very successful little light sport planes and their own engines. But the J432? This thing looks like someone glued a second engine onto its nose as an afterthought. Actually, that's pretty much what happened. The story goes like this. In South Africa, bush pilots wanted a cheap twin-engine aircraft for flying over farmland and remote jungles. Why? Because if you lost an engine out there, you didn't just risk a crash. You risked landing in the middle of an angry farmer's property. And rumor has it, those farmers weren't afraid to wave AK-47s around or demand ransom from stranded pilots. So, instead of doing a full redesign with wing-mounted engines, which would have been expensive, the South African Jabiru team came up with a creative solution. Just bolt 2 engines right next to each other on the nose. Voila! The Twin-Nosed Jabiru was born. The result looked like a Dornier 28 knockoff with engine warts. Each little engine only pushed 80 horsepower with fixed-pitch props, not exactly a powerhouse. But the idea was simple. If one failed, the other might just be enough to get you home safely. And for pilots worried about hostile landings, that extra peace of mind was worth it. Performance wasn't dazzling, but you don't buy a Jabiru twin to set speed records. You buy it because you'd rather limp home on one engine than explain to an angry farmer why you just plowed into his field. Certified in South Africa, the J432 remains one of the strangest but most practical why not aircraft designs out there, but it's unclear how many were actually sold. Number 3. At first glance, the Miles Aerovan looks less like an airplane and more like someone tried strapping wings to a shipping container. Seriously, it's the definition of box with wings. By all logic, this thing shouldn't even leave the ground. And yet, it did. Born in the closing years of World War II, the Aerovan was one of the last designs from Miles Aircraft. You'd think such a chunky plane would need massive engines, right? Nope. The Aerovan had 2 tiny 145 horsepower engines, about the same as a family car. And somehow, it could carry more than its own empty weight. Inside, the cabin was huge for its size. It could take 10 passengers, 2,000 pounds of cargo, or even a small car. Loading was easy too, thanks to giant clamshell doors at the back, and it only needed one pilot. Pilots expected it to handle like a brick, but to everyone's surprise, they loved flying it. Light controls, steady in the air, and surprisingly practical. Miles dreamed big with the Aerovan, turning it into seaplanes, 4-engine versions, detachable cargo pods, even a test bed for giant turboprops. One wild variant had skinny long wings that later inspired a French design, but politics and lawsuits eventually caught up with Miles Aircraft, and after several lawsuits against them, they shut their doors in 1948, and thus, only 48 Aerovans were ever built. ending everyone's dream of owning the ultimate flying moving van. Number 2. If there's one plane that looks as awkward as it flies, it's the Patchen Explorer. Imagine a boxy minivan with wings, and you're halfway there. The Explorer started life as the Thurston Teal, a plucky little amphibian from the 1960s. Thurston thought, hey, let's turn it into a land plane that could replace helicopters for jobs like pipeline patrol. Cheap, slow, with a big bubble cockpit for visibility, it seemed like a good idea on paper, but the US market wanted nothing to do with it. So Thurston shipped the design off to South Africa, hoping it would catch on there. Nope, still no buyers. Eventually, the South African Air Force tested it as an observation plane. And that's where the real problem showed up. With the engine mounted high, the center of gravity was way off, making it twitchy and unstable. Its boxy fuselage needed a ton of control force just to maneuver, and pilots sat so low that landing often meant smashing the nose gear. Test pilots said flying it was exhausting, especially in rough air. Nobody wanted to be seen in the dumpy Explorer when cooler planes like the AM-3 Bosbach were around. The Air Force kept one around for testing, but it was basically the aviation equivalent of the kid nobody picks for dodgeball. Eventually, the Explorer was restored and flown at air shows, more as a flying curiosity than a serious aircraft. But tragedy struck in 2021 when one crashed after an engine failure, killing 2 pilots. A sad end for a plane that never really found its place, except as one of aviation's oddest misfits. Number 1. Finally, if you thought Burt Rutan built weird planes, wait until you meet André Stark, a French designer who decided to throw the rulebook out the window. Back in the 1930s, Stark was building fairly normal-looking airplanes. But then he started experimenting with something bizarre: staggered wings. Not quite a biplane, not quite a monoplane, more like wings stacked close together so they acted like natural slots. In theory, this gave you slow flight performance without all the complicated flaps and slats. Fast forward to the 1970s, and Stark unveiled his wildest design yet, the AS-37. This wasn't just odd-looking, it was odd everywhere. Instead of a standard aircraft engine, he dropped in a Citroën car engine with only 60 horsepower. And instead of putting the propellers on the nose or tail, he mounted 2 little props in the narrow gap between the wings, powered by belts running from the fuselage. It looked like a science experiment with wings, but somehow, it worked. The AS-37 could carry 2 people, slowly but safely. Later versions even used Porsche engines for more power, and some builders tried mounting the props in front of the wings instead. Stark sold around 20 sets of plans, but only 2 AS-37s were ever built. Today, both survivors sit in French museums, preserved as proof that sometimes the strangest ideas in aviation actually get off the ground. So there you have it, 5 of the weirdest planes to ever fly. From flying watermelons to double-nosed bush planes to boxcars with wings. Aviation history is full of bizarre experiments. Which one do you think takes the crown as the strangest? Drop your pick in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe, because the next plane on my list is even weirder. You won't want to miss it.